Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either through my website, emailrevealer.com, or you can email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. Put up 8 hours of exclusive content there each month, plus the shows you're listening to right now ad-free up on Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. And as usual, the archives are free over at Spreaker.com. You go there, sign up for free, get an email notification when new content goes up, and there's a chat room too as well. We're really lucky today to have an excellent guest. Mike King from ProfilingEvil.com is his website, and he's written this book called Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. This one of these polygamy cults up there in Utah. Mr. Mike King, are you there?
I am. It's so nice to be here, Ed. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you so much. Before we get into your book, Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion cult, the Zion Society cult, tell us about yourself. Who is Mike King?
Oh, well, I'm now in my 60s, Ed, and I'm starting to really enjoy life, but I had a wonderful career. I did almost 30 years in law enforcement, retiring as a chief of staff in the Attorney General's office out in Utah. But along the way, I served in patrol and rode police motorcycles. I served on the SWAT team. I was an investigator for a number of years, and I even had the opportunity about midway through my career to be trained by FBI profilers in the art and science of criminal profiling. After the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, which I had the opportunity of serving in the intelligence command on, I took a job with a private company in Los Angeles called ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute, which is a GIS mapping company, and I now consult and provide support to law enforcement agencies around the world.
Yeah, I forgot to mention you got a YouTube channel too, Profiling Evil on YouTube.
Yeah, we do. It's actually been a lot of fun. It started out actually as a little experiment with my kids, who kept saying for years, "We're so tired of hearing you talk about all these old police stories. Why don't you just record them and stick them on YouTube?" And so we started in June, and the thing just exploded. We're now at 50,000 subscribers, and obviously looking for more. We look at cold cases. We looked at situations involving law enforcement. I felt like there was such a rugged year, 2020, for law enforcement, that there were things that I could do to rehumanize police officers in the face of the public. So we spend a lot of time talking about the impact that the profession has on the people that are out there on the street. And while some of the arguments this year that we've seen are well-deserved, the majority of police officers are horrified by the things that happened and don't do business that way. And so I use this platform as a way to help also make sure people know these are human beings that are trying their hardest.
Now, I noticed too on ProfilingEvil.com, you have like a people can participate in looking at cold cases and stuff like that. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, in fact, I call it public CSI, crowdsourced intelligence, and it's really kind of an interesting concept. We created something called the Evidence Room on our YouTube channel, and we have a place on our website where people can go and submit information if they feel uncomfortable with law enforcement, or they just want to provide, hey, I happen to look for something. A great example is on the Daybell case in Idaho, if you've watched that, the missing children who were later found buried in the backyard of Chad Daybell's home. At one point, they were believed to have been just before they disappeared in Yellowstone Park. And so we threw out to this YouTube community a challenge to see if anyone could show us that they were in Yellowstone Park. We had people, Ed, that were viewing hundreds and hundreds of hours of park CCTV imagery, looking at the video camera footage, and they found them in the park and provided that information that we were able to just pass on. So it's an amazing way to share intelligence and give people a chance to weigh in. And a lot of folks, are getting really good at surfing the web and finding information that's publicly disclosed, but sometimes goes past law enforcement, who just frankly doesn't have the time to research everything.
You seem to be working on this thing too. Susan Morphews?
Yeah, we actually helped with the Suzanne Morphew case. This is a mother who is a 49-year-old mom that disappears on Mother's Day.
Oh.
Strangely, her husband happens to be in Denver, some 2.5 hours away on the day she disappears, doing some last-minute business stuff. His children happen to be sent off to a church camp at this time, and she mysteriously disappears and is wiped off the face of the map. And it's so disturbing because there were suggested alibis like a mountain lion may have taken her, or that the boogeyman got her, or that she crashed on her bicycle and stumbled into the creek. And so we went out and we started looking at that case. We examined things. We brought on the experts from the Mountain Lion Foundation to just completely blow holes in this concept that a mountain lion could pristinely kill a human being and carry them off, never to be seen or have any artifact of the evidence. And so we kind of used the platform to kind of explore some ideas, and that one was one where we really were blessed to become very close to Suzanne's family, who invited us to come out and help them with a search, and we organized mapping software so that they could track all 700 plus searchers in real time, and that's just kind of a way we can help out a little bit.
Well, that's excellent, man. I have a real professional helping out in these cases. Now, the Zion Society. Who was the Zion Society?
Yeah, Zion Society has captured a few people's attention. Some people have wondered if it had something to do with Judaism. It's the term Zion Society is actually a Christianity term, and groups have taken that and used it to identify them as a perfect people. What we had was a pedophilic predator who decided that he was going to build a religion that would somehow justify his desires to sexually assault children, and he used the polygamy system to start that in motion, and he called his group the Zion Society.
Now, from what I understand, the guy was originally a landscaper. How did he go from being a landscaper to running a big cult?
That's the beauty, I think, of being a self-proclaimed prophet. You can be someone living a rather mundane life like landscaping and propel yourself into greatness by saying, I'm one that God has chosen, and you people are really lucky to know me.
And what were their beliefs? What was he proposing?
Well, it was interesting. He started out with basic Christianity, but then he started to embrace the idea of polygamy. And if you think of polygamy, sometimes it's attributed to one faith in the Utah area, but in reality, polygamy is something that extends all through the Old Testament and the New Testament, and has been a part of Christianity for many years. In fact, in the U.S. today, still there are, from what I understand, like 50,000 practicing polygamists across the country who come from all kinds of different backgrounds. But this guy embraced the idea that polygamy and religion would give him the opportunity to have relationships with multiple women, something that was against the law and is against the law, but if it's sanctioned by God, then of course it's something that you have to do. And he started his religion based on that idea that I'm just doing what God wants me, and somehow his wife bought off on this idea that he just has to do what God wants. Well, what happened with this particular guy is over time, his deviance continued, like in most deviant characteristics and personality types, to get worse. And before long, it was not only that did he want to have multiple wives that he could have sexual relationships with, but then he wanted those women to start having relationships with each other, and that it was all to be done under his direction. Well, again, with all of these sicknesses and cancers, it just got worse. And eventually he then started introducing the female children into the mix and started abusing them as well.
How was he able to attract followers? Like, did he start with his friends and family, and then how did he draw people in?
This is really troubling for a lot of us because we want to think that we're smart enough to avoid something like this. I think of Dr. Margaret Singer, who she died a few years ago, but she wrote an amazing book called Cults in Our Midst. And I'll never forget a quote that she made, and it goes like this. She says, quote, "We know that people can be led to buy almost anything. In addition to buying almost anything, people can apparently be led to believe almost anything. Cults know that if you knew from the get-go what you were in for and why, you would never join. It's as simple as that," close quote. And she is absolutely right. We've seen this evolution. You think back when we were looking at Jim Jones and others, we used to think these were uneducated people that were joining cults, that they were, just idiots to be sucked into this. And what we're finding today is that the cults that are existing today, and there, according to the experts, are some 5,000 cults around the world in existence at any given moment, that they actually are out recruiting intelligent people and bringing them in. They're offering them something that they can't get in their regular lives. And somehow, for some personalities, it resonates.
Now this was you led this investigation, right?
I did, yes.
How did they come to your attention? How'd you find out?
Well, this is another crazy thing. I was a property crimes investigator. I mean, I'd served on the SWAT team and had been in the city police department and was hired by a brand new county attorney to come in and work in his county attorney's office. And so I was actually running an undercover sting operation one day. We were buying stolen vehicles and selling them on the street, and we were building up this network. And I happened to walk in the office one day around noon, and the receptionist grabbed me and said, "Hey, do you have a minute? This woman's been waiting to talk to an investigator for a while, and we don't have anyone available." I was kind of the last person that they thought of and available. And so I said, "Sure, I'll talk to her for a moment." She's an attractive young 20-year-old woman. We went back into my office and we sat down, and the first thing that she said was, "I've been involved in a cult that's sexually abusing children. Can I tell you my story?" And, I tried to act like this was something I heard every day, Ed, but, I was just a dumb old property crimes investigator. I'd never handled, other than as a patrol officer, child sexual assaults or sexual assaults in general. And she started to reveal what had gone on in this cult that she escaped from, and it was absolutely unbelievable. In fact, so unbelievable that I immediately, after dismissing her and then setting up an invitation for her to come back the following day, I went into the county attorney's office and interrupted his schedule and said, "I got to share with you what I got here." And we both just sat back almost with our jaws dropped open, wondering if this is even possible.
How was she able to escape?
I wonder to this day if she had a sense that things were beginning to unravel, but she finally one day grabbed her child and just left. And I think she had so much information on the group that they stayed away from her and tried to avoid upsetting her in hopes that she would never talk. And, of course, she did, and she basically led to the rescue of 32 children.
Fascinating. Now this is in the town of Ogden, Utah, right?
Yes, it's about 30 minutes north of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I think the show airs in Ogden, Utah. But now the thing is, that's not like a bizarre town or a weird town. That's a pretty stable town. I know people from there. How were they able to stay under the radar doing all this craziness?
That was the other odd thing about this case, was if you think about most of these cults, They go and find a place out in the woods or someplace where they're away from everything. This guy masterfully built it right in the middle of a neighborhood, and he was slowly taking over a neighborhood. They purchased up 11, I think, homes within this small little cul-de-sac area. There was only one way in and one way out. And they had these incredibly landscaped yards compared to the rest of the neighborhood. They just stood out like sore thumbs. Everything about it didn't make sense because everything about it drew attention to them, and yet they remained under the radar.
Fascinating. And they were stockpiling weapons as well?
So during the course of the investigation, we heard all kinds of testimony that there was a doomsday mentality within the group. So there was the collection of automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons. There was the collection of ammunition being talked about. Now, we didn't know this for sure. And then, of course, there was discussion about food storage and medical supplies and items they'd stolen from emergency rooms, like pregnancy crash cart items and other kinds of things, so they could take care of home births. And then, of course, we heard of a library that was stocked with books on bomb making and marksmanship, and then, of course, general scholastic kinds of or academic kinds of things, because they were homeschooling their children. So as we investigated the case, we started to unravel all of these different tentacles that caused a great amount of concern for law enforcement.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, how do you investigate something like this? You have one person comes in, a victim comes into you and says, hey, there's something crazy going on over here in these houses, right? But what can you do? You go knock on the door? What do you do next?
Yeah, well, but because there was so much at risk, we couldn't just go knock on doors. So one of the first things that I did was I started to try to disprove her, to see if there were holes in her story. And you know, I mean, it's really important when you're dealing with victims of crime that they know that you believe them, that they believe something happened. But then your responsibility is this something that really can be validated and corroborated with other kinds of evidence? And, you know, we talk all the time in law enforcement about the fact that we can't build cases on any single form of evidence. And here I had some incredibly powerful eyewitness testimony. I was there. I was participating. I saw. But nonetheless, she could have been as wacky as a jaybird. And so I had to also then start going out and saying, now what can I corroborate with other kinds of information? And as her story unfolded, there became bits and pieces away from the group that I could use to corroborate the story. Things like at times the children were taken out and for lack of a better term, prostituted to people in the community, to be able to go out and find the men that were involved and that sexually assaulted those children with the adult women in the group, corroborated her stories. And so you start adding on. Now I have multiple eyewitnesses, and then I have physical evidence that I can look at, and circumstantial evidence. And so that, as you start putting the case together, starts putting all the puzzle pieces out on the table. And then, of course, you start assembling them. And you're no stranger to investigations. I mean, it's just a matter of getting in and working your guts out.
Now once again, Ogden, Utah is such a small town, so they were able to prostitute these children to men in the town?
Well, and there were only 2 counts that we ever were aware of, and that I was able to get confessions of the 2 men that sexually assaulted the children. But in those cases, the thing that's interesting is, keep in mind, now Ogden's a population of about 87,000,
right,
within a community of about 280,000. So it's while it is by standards of our major cities in the country a small city, it's large enough that you can get lost in the woodwork, and they were effectively lost in the woodwork.
Okay, and he was a landscaper, right? Did he have contracts with big, powerful people in town?
That was another crazy thing. Is this guy had designed some of the most beautiful landscape gardens in the county. The city and county building where the courts and the police department were located, and the county jail were not only designed by him but maintained by him. So he was no stranger in the community either. And then of course anyone who had money tried to hire him to do work in their homes, and of course in the very expensive homes of the city. He was often the landscaper who put together their landscaping.
So now, how was this cult funded? I guess there was some prostitution going on, but did they all work for the landscaping company?
Yeah, and so it's and the prostitution term is maybe inappropriate because I don't know that we ever were able to show that money exchanged hands.
Gotcha.
Is a result of that. But these adult women would take the children out. In my opinion, that's prostitution, whether there was gain of some kind, and it was usually either getting more members or something in trade for whatever that relationship was. But what was required in this cult and in many cults is that there obviously has to be a financial system in place, and it's rarely the leader of the group that is the worker bee. It's everyone else, and so these women, primarily uneducated women working hourly wage jobs, were working in hotels as cleaning staff or other things, were responsible for giving all of their money that they earned back to Arvin, this man in charge, who would then determine how it would be spent in the group. And of course, they were thrilled to do so, like many faiths are, to donate tithes, in effect, to the common good of their church. But in this case, the common good was Arvin and his designs.
Fascinating. But so now, if they're out there trying to recruit new people, there had to be some people who would turn them down, and wouldn't they go running to the cops and say, these people just tried to recruit me into this?
Well, yeah, but what are they going to run to the cops with? That became the challenge. There had been ghost stories and rumors abounding for years, primarily from estranged husbands whose wives had joined the group and taken their children and were cutting them off from visitation. Now, they didn't want male children in the group, and so many husbands were able to actually purchase their male children back from their wives and get court orders that gave them full custody of the children in exchange for, in one case, they said they were charged $10,000 to do this. But all in all, it still came down to civil transactions. Law enforcement doesn't mess with custody battles.
Yeah, but it must have come up in custody court. There must be court documents making these allegations, right?
Well, yeah, and then the allegations now, that was the other beauty of how he originally set this up, is they were living in different homes, and they would just purport, and when they would testify in any kind of civil hearings, they would say, we're just neighbors who like each other and have a love for gardening, and we get together to help with food storage and things to kind of help each other out. But they all, in fact, in the newspaper accounts that were written before the raid ever occurred, the allegations of a church being run out of that location were poo-pooed. In fact, there was no physical worship building or church, and they never practiced a worship service in any of the homes. So even though it was something that they called a church and a religion, there was no religion going on.
This is just incredibly fascinating. Okay, we are with Michael. Yeah. This is just unbelievable that all this was going on, and there was like 30 members of the cult. You said, right?
No, there were
30 children.
According to reports, 120-ish is the high number that we got, but there were 32 children living in the homes.
Incredible. And these kids, they weren't going to regular schools or anything like that, right?
No, they were all homeschooled, yeah.
And no doctor visits. Were they ever taken to doctors? Emergencies, broken leg?
Yeah, actually, that's interesting you bring that up because that was one of the strategies. And, of course, in the book we explored into detail where the children, if they did get a cold, were sent to the county health department or to the Midtown clinic where they could get free care. And there, the adults would go in with them and they would try to steal as much as possible from the shelves, tape and gauze and other kinds of things to stock up their supplies that they had in the basements of these homes. And then the medicines that were given to the children were stockpiled on the shelves. The children were never given those medicines. In fact, the victims who are in the book and who are talking about their experiences say how they just suffered as they allowed their body just to slowly develop the antigens to get through things, but they were never given the medicines because those were kept as part of the food storage and the end of days preparation storage that the cult kept.
Incredible. Like I said, we're talking with Michael R. King. He's the author of the book Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. He's the actual detective in charge of this case. And when we get to this, we're going to find out how he finally got enough evidence to raid these guys and how they went to prison, all that kind of stuff too as well. We'll be right back after these messages with more of Mike King. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. But I forgot to mention, too, if you go to silkcityhotsauce.com and you put in promo code ED, you get a free bottle of hot sauce and 15% off of your order at silkcityhotsauce.com. Best hot sauce in town. But we're here today with Mike King telling us this fascinating story. He wrote a book about it, Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Society of the Zion Society cult. And you can find that on his website, profilingevil.com. He's also got a YouTube channel called Profiling Evil. And so, Mike, how did you get enough evidence to actually get a warrant?
Well, you know, the county attorney on that first evening when I sat down with him and shared what I had learned, basically pulled me off of everything else that I was working. Frankly, Ed, I was hoping that he would give this to somebody who was trained in this kind of a thing and let me continue to buy stolen cars. And that wasn't the case. It launched me into a completely different direction in my career, as you might guess. But immediately I started working round the clock. One of the first things that I did is I went to the Ogden City Police Department and spoke with the police chief there, asking for one of his investigators, a guy who actually was my field training officer when I was a rookie many years earlier, and I thought was just one of the finest investigators I'd ever dealt with. And then together, he and I started interviewing as many people as we could find, knowing that we had a short fuse, because if these children were being sexually assaulted every single day, which was the report, then we couldn't afford to let this investigation last for months and months or years. Something had to be done immediately. It took literally 20-hour days for a month for us to keep a lid on this, not share with anyone what was going on because of the fear that they would destroy evidence, and put together enough information that we could go in and raid all of the homes and try to collect the pornography, the sexual training materials that they had, the devices, the automatic or semi-automatic weapons. And once I had the warrants in hand, then we started preparing for the raid.
Fascinating. And how'd you pull that off? Because they're in there with a bunch of automatic weapons and stuff. Did you have a SWAT team over there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real concern for us. And, of course, when I went and laid the case out for the judge and asked for a no-knock search warrant, or the ability to go in and kick doors down and take people into custody immediately, the judge agreed that the risk to not only the people in the cult but to the officers was great, and the risk of losing evidence was so great that we were given a no-knock search warrant. So this is where it got kind of fun, as I, again, sat down with the police chief, and I asked for the SWAT team commander, who I had served under as a SWAT officer in the city, and I said I'd really like him to be the only one to know as we plan, because this was a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret. He was just a machine when it comes to managing an assault on a place, and together we started looking at how we would set up this raid. We eventually ended up calling in almost 70 police officers so that we could hit the 10 homes all at once. And the thing that was so interesting is because we, again, didn't want to risk anyone knowing and tipping our hand, the officers thought they were coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning to prepare for an early morning parade. And I'll tell you, there were a lot of disgruntled cops sitting in that room when we got together for the briefing the next morning. But as we laid out the case and started showing them photographs of the homes that we were going to hit, and put together the plan of who and what teams were going to hit which homes, you could see the interest level just increasing. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, while our hope was that most of the polygamy cult members were asleep, we raided the homes, and within a matter of about 30 seconds, we had all of the homes secured, and it just went off flawlessly.
And when you said that they thought they were coming in for a parade?
Yeah. In fact, one of the chapters I call it "This is no parade duty," because that's one of the comments I heard from the cops when the police chief walked in and said, "Okay, here's what we're doing this morning, guys." And one leaned over and goes, "This is no parade duty."
Yeah, but the thing is, you're familiar with like New York City the Thanksgiving Day parade, like the night before all the cops get drunk, you know? So you weren't worried that they would come in drunk that day for the parade?
No, we weren't worried about that at all. They were in ship shape and ready to go.
Now, this happened years after Waco, right? So you must be concerned about that kind of thing too, right?
No, it's actually before Waco.
Oh, it's before Waco. Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, just a few years before Waco. Yeah.
Okay, so how many people go to jail?
So initially, in fact, let me talk about the raid for a moment, because it was pretty amazing. When we got inside, the radio just lit up with chatter as the officers started describing the things that they were finding. And of course, we want folks to read the book, but it was absolutely incredible. The stuff that fit this doomsday mentality. The officers were recovering large amounts of material that was written about this thing they called the sexual way of life, which was the doctrine used to train the children. They were recovering the semi-automatic weapons that were hidden in doorways and in floors. In fact, at one point I was sitting on the floor in one bedroom with a map that my witness had drawn for me, and she said, "There are weapons right here," and I couldn't see a thing. We had torn the room apart, and I was sitting in the corner just staring, and I was unconsciously pulling on the carpet, and I felt the carpet give way, and the actual floor of the carpeting was velcroed down. As I pulled it back, panels started opening up, exposing fully loaded Mini 14 assault rifles. And so we realized that the potential for problems were there. Every home was alarmed and interconnected so that they could communicate and set off alarms if someone were to come in. And many of the homes had bars on the doors in the basements and other kinds of things, further fortifying them. So it then became a evidence collection challenge that took most of the day.
Was there any resistance, armed resistance?
No, believe it or not, I mean, I like to credit it to the amazing work of the police officers. We hit front and back doors simultaneously. We were able to get inside and quickly gain control. Most of the people were arrested in their beds, and so or detained in their beds. At that time, I only had an arrest warrant for the prophet of the group, and we had pickup orders on the children to take them into protective custody. The prophet, self-proclaimed prophet of the group, was nowhere to be found, and so we actually made 0 arrests on day one, but we took the children into custody and, of course, collected the evidence. And then over the course of several days, we had just opened the first Children's Justice Center in the state of Utah, third in the country, a center where forensic interviews can take place with children of sexual or physical assault. And we started this process of interviewing the children. It was only a matter of about 4 days until the leader turned himself in. Now, just before that, I had arrested the 2 men who had been having sex with the kids outside of the cult. They weren't cult members, that I talked about earlier. And so we were starting to chip away, but it wasn't until the leader confessed that the cards all started to fall.
Okay, so the leader confesses. He doesn't go to trial?
So amazingly, the leader turned himself in 300 miles away to a small local city jail, and they called me, and so we jumped in. At that time, I was driving a Camaro with T-tops that we had taken from some drug traffickers in a seizure, and so that was my police car. We used that sports car's capability to get that 300 miles between us pretty quickly, and we went in, and the first words out of his mouth was that he wanted his attorney. And so we were completely shut down and somewhat deflated, but we had pre-planned that would happen. And so we put our secondary plan into motion, and of course you can read more about that in the book. But by the time we had made it about 3/4 of the way back to Ogden with this person in custody, he had fired his attorney and was demanding to share his opinion of what was going on. And over the course of the interview, which lasted several hours and into the early morning hours, he confessed to sexually assaulting the children. That then led to a number of, not only the initial hearing, but the preliminary hearing. And then when he got to trial, he pled guilty rather than face additional charges, which we were prepared to bring. But in the meantime, we then started interviewing all of the other people that we had cases on, and one by one, they all confessed, except for a couple. In the end, all of them pled guilty to the charges and were sentenced.
Incredible. So he turned himself in without his attorney in some small podunk jail. He must have had a plan there, and then fires his attorney way home. And then he was confessing, saying, "Hey, let me tell you, I'm really God. This is we're doing the right thing here." He was trying to convince you.
Actually, he was trying to convince us of what his belief system was,
right,
and justify what he did. Yeah, it was pretty disgusting.
Oh, fascinating. Just fascinating. Okay. Now, what about how many other guys were arrested, convicted?
We had a total of 13 people that we charged. One of those, a 6-year-old child, was unable to testify in the preliminary hearing. We were in the middle of the trial, and the child just, back in those days, we allowed defense attorneys to cross-examine children in a preliminary hearing, and they could badger and just destroy these little children. And this is what happened in this particular case, and so we withdrew that case rather than put that child through it again. But the rest, we had older children, not 6-year-olds, but we had 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids who got up and testified, and so the remaining 12 were all convicted.
How many, besides the ones you didn't charge, how many do you think got away that we should be concerned about?
Well, we had enough cases to file enough information to file additional charges. We actually went for 2 years, Ed, in those trials on the 12 people that were convicted. And we could have kept going, but we made a conscious decision that at what point do we quit punishing these child victims who are being forced to testify, and we made a conscious decision to stop. There were multiple people that could have been charged, and we've often wondered if they should have been charged, but we have to just err on the side that we looked at the victim first. I don't believe there have been any of those offenders who ever have been charged with reoffending, so I don't know the status of that. And that, of course, is one of the heartaches of this case 30 years later, is to look at it and say, what could we have done better? And that may have been one of those areas that we should have persevered in, but we chose not to.
Gotcha. Now, I know you've established a relationship with a lot of the young children victims over the course of their life.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have anything to do with them after the case. I purposely chose not to. It was very painful for me as well, and I think that's a point that I'd like the listeners to realize is that these cases are really difficult on investigators as well. And while I would never want to minimize what the victim themselves went through, there's collateral damage and lots of things that you just can never get out of your mind when you handle a case like this. I had planned on never talking about this case again, but about 2 years ago, I received an email, and then 2 weeks later, a second email, unorchestrated, from two of the victims who said, it's been 28 years and I'm still not over this, and I need someone to talk to. Can you help me? And after some thought, Ed, I wrote them both an email and said, best wishes in your futures, and I don't know that there's anything I could do to help you. And I've just, as gently as I could, let them down and said, I'm not interested in helping. Well, I could not get over that. I could not get these children out of my mind. At about that same time, the prosecutor in the case reached out and said, the State Victims Council would like a recap of the case 30 years later. Would you do it? And I told him, no, I won't. I don't want to deal with it. And I had kept the case up on a file or a shelf in my basement for 30 years. And every time I'd look at it, I'd think I'm going to burn that thing. Well, I didn't burn it one more time. And about, a year later, we were facing January, February of 2020. And I thought, who am I to tell these children what they need or don't need? These 10-year-old kids are now in their 40s that were victims then. And so I decided I'd reach out to them. And so I contacted as many as I could, and 9 of them responded back. And after 30 years, they hadn't seen each other in that entire time. And so I arranged for a Zoom call, and in June of this year, brought them onto a Zoom call to chat for a moment. We talked. They wanted the book written. Of course, I had written this book 10 times over the last 30 years, Ed, and I kept putting the manuscript away, thinking it just is not a story that should be told. And when the kids said, I need it done, and I keep calling these beautiful adult women kids because that's what they are in my mind, I thought, who am I to make that decision? And so I decided to pull it all out, and I started interviewing the kids and learned the places where we had really failed them, like continued counseling and getting an education and having a support system, and went about working on how to rectify that. And that is part of what the book talks about, is what we did after 30 years to try to help these kids get along. And then, of course, Dr. Phil heard about it, and I had done some other work for the good doc, and he brought me on his show, and for the first time in 30 years, I got to see their beautiful faces.
Wow, fascinating. That's just fact. Just think they grew up together, and then they don't see each other. We went through the same trauma, and then don't see each other for 30 years. Mike King, we're out of time, man. We got 2 minutes. What do you want to leave us with?
Just that, sadly, abuse happens. It's a story that should never have to be told. But, I think as uncomfortable as it is, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be told. And this book is one of those kinds of stories. It chronicles my investigation. And for us to ignore, avoid, or pretend that these kind of events don't occur, Ed, is just simply not helpful to victims, potential victims, or society in general. It's about transparency and awareness. I hope that people will go. The book will start shipping in January, and I hope they'll go to the website, profilingevil.com, and order it. And I would just be so honored to have them share this story.
And don't forget the YouTube channel, too, Profiling Evil. Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. Mike King, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Good night. And now a word from our sponsors. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.